Hi, boys and girls. I'm going to read a story to you today. The story comes from this big book. The big book is called The Dog Next Door and Other Stories. So in this book, and it's a very thick book, there are many, many stories that I can read to you. Now, when you pick stories out of here, you don't have to read them in order. You can just go to a certain page, and where the title is, you can begin the story there. The story I'm going to read to you today is called The Dog Next Door. And that's actually the first story in this book. Now, this book, if you can see by the cover, it's quite old. It's actually a book that Mrs. Clock used to read when she was a little girl, and there was many, many stories that I loved in here. But I always remember this one because I had a dog when I was a little girl. Raise your hand if you have a dog right now. Okay. Some of you do. Raise your hand if you want a dog. Me too. But that's okay. This is a fun story. It's called The Dog Next Door. And as you see, as I read it today, look at those illustrations. They almost look like they're painted. They're beautiful. And they're not always like illustrations we see today. And the characters may look different than characters we see in our stories today. Because it was written longer ago, people wore different things. And sometimes they did their hair differently. And they did different things. Let's go ahead and get started. The Bradleys move in. William and Lucy Brown sat on their steps watching a big van. The van was coming down the street. It stopped at the house next door. A woman was sitting there waiting in the doorway. Now people were going to move in. Someone was coming to live in the house next door. Two men began to take a big basket out of the moving van. "Put that basket over there, please," the woman said. "That's fine." William was thinking about the new people. He hoped there would be a boy in the family. "I hope a girl moves in there," Lucy said. Lucy's big cat was sitting on her lap. "I'm going over there, and I'm going to ask if there is a boy in the family," William said. "You stay here, Lucy." But Lucy followed him. The moving men were going up to the front walk with a big box. "You can take that box to the back door," the woman said. The men took the box, and William waited by the front door till the woman looked at him and smiled. "Hello," she said. "Do you live around here?" "Well, yes, I live next door. I'm William Brown." "Well, I'm Mrs. Bradley. Stanley will be pleased to have a boy next door." William was happy. "There's a boy in the family," he thought. Mrs. Bradley was still talking, and Mr. Bradley and Stanley will be coming very soon. Along the street came a little car with a man in it, and a great big dog sat beside him. The car stopped in front of the house, and the dog barked and jumped down. "That's Stanley," William said. "Stanley is a dog." Stanley was barking as he came up the walk, and everyone could see that Stanley was happy. And everyone could see that Lucy's cat and William were not happy at all. And look at the dogs going woof, woof. The cat jumped down and climbed into an oak tree. When Stanley barked, the cat climbed higher. The moving men came up the walk with a big doghouse. Stanley was still barking, and the cat climbed higher. Up she went, higher, still higher. "Someone will have to get that cat down from the tree," Mr. Bradley said. "The cat will come down," Lucy said. "She knows about that oak tree." Well, the moving men looked at Mrs. Bradley. "We're almost finished. Everything is in the house but this. Where does it go?" "Move the doghouse back by the fence, please," Mrs. Bradley said. Stanley followed them around back, and Lucy's cat came from down the oak tree and ran home. When the men came back, Stanley came too, and he jumped up on William. "Say, Mrs. Bradley," William said, "would it be all right if I take Stanley for a walk?" "Stanley would like that very much," said Mrs. Bradley. So now William's going to take Stanley for a walk. Well, William and Stanley and Lucy went down the street. "This is where our family lives, Stanley," Lucy said. "We live with our mother and our father, and the cat climbed up in your oak tree. That was my cat. And you and the cat have to be friends." "Stanley doesn't know how to talk," William said. "Well, how do you know?" Lucy asked. William didn't know how to answer. He thought about this for a long time. Stanley was having a good time. And every now and then he ran away looking in people's gardens, but each time he came right back and walked beside William. William was feeling better now, but he still wished that a boy had moved next door. "This is a nice dog," Lucy said. "It's almost as good as having a girl next door." "It's not almost as good as having a girl next door," William said. "It's better." The end. And the next story is called Green Paint. Did you like that story? I think they're going to be good neighbors to the dog. The next story we can read is Green Paint. And that also has the same characters as Lucy and William. So we'll put that away, and I'll put a little bookmark in it for next time. Bye-bye, boys and girls. Love you in your big hearts.